They uncovered a shocking prophecy in Amos 5 that could change everything you believe. Few knew what truly happened that night in the quiet town of Bethel. It was a night cloaked in mystery, shrouded in darkness, when the air was thick with anticipation. A hushed whisper traveled through the streets, an omen, a revelation, a warning. Amos, a simple shepherd, stood on the edge of the marketplace. His heart raced, hands trembling as an inexplicable truth welled up inside him. Did the heavens themselves bleed through the cracks of reality? He could feel it, an electric pulse coursing through his veins as he spoke words he'd never imagined could escape his lips. "Prepare to meet your God," he repeated, glancing skyward as if expecting the very sky to rip open. The sun hung low, casting long shadows over the cobblestones while families hurried home, oblivious to the tension crackling around them. There was a weight in the air, something was about to give. In the distance, the temple loomed, a symbol of power and a fortress of faith. Yet, whispers of corruption had seeped through its golden gates. The rich feasted while the poor were trampled underfoot. The world seemed at the brink, teetering on an unseen edge. The townsfolk murmured, exchanging anxious glances. "What does he mean?" a woman cried out, fear creeping into her voice. An elderly man shook his head, his face lined with worry. If Amos was right, their very lives were built on the crumbling foundation of lies. What could a shepherd possibly know about the divine? Yet, the fire in Amos' eyes spoke volumes. Moments ticked by like dripping water, slow, torturous. The ground felt alive, vibrating beneath him. With each passing second, he sensed the walls closing in, squeezing the breath from his lungs. How could he warn them when they were so lost in their own comforts? The night air grew heavy, thick with the potential for disaster. Then came the quaking, a rumble that shook the earth beneath them. Gasps echoed through the crowd as the ground shuddered, pulling them into a shared anxiety. "Is it an earthquake?" someone shouted, panic rising. But Amos remained anchored, his spirit unwavering amidst the chaos. He knew this was merely a precursor to something far greater. Raw emotions painted the scene: fear, sorrow, confusion. Yet, deep inside, a small flicker of hope remained. Could it be that through this turmoil, they might find redemption? As he opened his mouth to speak once more, the ground thumped angrily again, drowning him out. What truth would emerge from the darkness? Amos stood, caught between the weight of prophecy and the destiny of his people. What would it take for them to listen? The crowd pulled back, the tension like a taut string waiting to snap. Would they heed the warning, or would the very heavens weep for their fate? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The ground tremored once more, echoing through the hearts of the people like a distant war drum. Amos felt the weight of their fear settle over him like a heavy cloak. He was but a shepherd, yet here, in the midst of this chaos, he felt as though he stood on sacred ground, a divine call beckoning him onward into the depths of unknown truths. "Listen!" he roared, his voice breaking through the panicked murmurs that enveloped the crowd. They turned, eyes wide like the night sky full of uncountable stars, each flickering point a reflection of their own uncertainty. "The Lord speaks in ways beyond our understanding. He warns us now, for we have forsaken his ways." The people shifted uneasily. He could see in their eyes a flicker of recognition, a confused blending of belief and skepticism. They had witnessed so much a drought that withered their crops, the cries of their children echoing through empty pockets, the hungry stares of those cast aside. These were signs, were they not? Could it be that Amos, with the simplicity of his shepherd's heart, was divinely chosen to articulate the torment of their existence? In the distance, a musician's laughter dissolved into the thickening air, a sound so discordant amongst the rising tide of tension. What does the prophet know of joy? They questioned softly, intoxicated by the revelry of mislaid hope. But Amos raised his arms high, like a branch reaching desperately for rain. Is it joy you seek while your neighbor starves? Is it revelry you crave when justice is a stranger? The Lord seeks a heart turned from excess and self, one that shares the hardships of others. Spare the innocent, reclaim the lost. What were riches to a man if his soul lay barren? Amos felt the swell of an unquenchable fire within him, a clarion call that pushed against the boundaries of his humble existence. Each word he spoke felt woven with the fabric of the heavens, revealing truths too profound for the unseeing. Then, standing there, a profound mystery emerged. A child from the back of the crowd, no more than 7 summers, stepped forward with innocent courage. She tugged at Amos' tunic, the soft pull grounded him amidst the storm of adult anxieties. "Sir," she said softly, "can we not trust him? Can we not believe he cares for us?" A hush fell over the crowd as the weight of her innocent question hung in the air, a heavy reminder of the simplicity of faith amidst the complexities of their lives. Amos knelt down, meeting the child's gaze. "Yes," he replied gently. "But do we truly believe? Do we honor that trust with our actions?" The rumble beneath them began to fade, along with the clamor of confusion. Instead, a soft stillness enveloped the crowd, forcing them to confront the dissonance within their divine beliefs and the reality they had created. Amos felt a swelling of hope. Perhaps now, in their unguarded honesty, a path toward redemption might begin to unfurl, yet still, a disquieting thought nagged at the edges of his conviction. What would it take to awaken their hearts from the slumber of complacency? Would they truly heed the call when the heavens wept for their surrender? What awaited them on the other side of redemption, should they choose to embrace it? As the crowd stood in hushed reverence, the tremors beneath their feet steadied, giving way to an unsettling calm. The sun had dipped low on the horizon, casting elongated shadows that flickered before the people like whispers from the past. Amos felt the weight of the moment pressing upon him, as if the heavens themselves had paused to listen. "Be ye still," he urged, emphasizing the importance of the silence that laid its blanket over their collective anxiety. "Listen closer, for I feel the Lord drawing near. He has not abandoned us, but his voice is often the softest amidst the raging storm." The child still clutched at the hem of his garment, her presence a symbol of pure trust that contrasted starkly with the older faces around them, etched with lines of fear and skepticism. In her wide eyes, he saw a spark, a reminder of the simplicity that faith could embody when held without the weight of worldly burdens. Perhaps, he thought, it is children who truly grasp the essence of belief, unfettered by the bitterness that years of disappointment can sow. "What prophecy have you for us, Amos?" An elder called out from the audience, squinting against the last rays of sunlight. "Can you truly lead us to redemption, or are your words merely the ramblings of a shepherd clutching at visions?" At this, Amos took a breath, letting the soft evening air fill his lungs before speaking. "I do not claim to possess every answer, but there are visions that came upon me in the stillness of the night. The skies opened in a dream, and I saw a river where it had not flowed before, a river of righteousness, a stream that poured forth from the heart of the Most High." The crowd shifted, their attention peaked. They leaned in, interested at last, longing for the promise of hope amid despair. "This river will wash away the injustice that clings to us like a second skin. It will clear our path if we turn from our wicked ways," he continued, "but it demands sacrifice of self and awakening of spirit, a cleansing of hearts long dulled by apathy." "But what does this sacrifice entail?" A woman interjected, her voice trembling with doubt. "How do we atone for our transgressions when the burden feels unyielding?" Amos drew upon his own trials, the days in the fields when the sun scorched his back and the loneliness of solitude pressed upon him. "It begins in the small moments," he replied, his voice steady yet gentle. "By tending to the needs of our neighbors, by sharing our bread with the hungry, by lifting the burdens of the weary. The Lord does not desire grand gestures as much as he yearns for humble hearts, willing and open to change." As the words left his mouth, a flicker of hope illuminated the brows of some, while others held on to their disbelief stubbornly, as if shrouded in a protective veil. Amos sensed the varied responses swirling around him, a reminder of how deep the roots of doubt had grown. In that moment, a sudden wind whispered through the gathered crowd, rustling the dry leaves above, and a question reverberated in the air: could their small choices lead to something greater than what they currently witnessed? Could they dare to trust in a God who had always been present, even in their darkest moments? Just then, the child stepped forward again, her silver laughter breaking the lingering tension like a sunbeam cutting through dark clouds. "If we believe, we must help make the river flow," she said brightly, a spark of light amidst the growing shadows. Amos couldn't help but smile at her gentle conviction, but beneath his smile lurked the heavier burden of understanding the treacherous journey ahead. As light began to fade, he realized that their path was not just about belief. It was equally about the choices they would face daily, as heavy as the stones they had permanently laid in the ground. What truths lay hidden in their hearts, waiting to be unearthed? And if they chose to dig, would they be willing to face the darkness that lay buried alongside the light? As the twilight deepened, casting an indigo cloak over the land, Amos felt a stirring within him, an urgency to guide the heart surrounding him towards an understanding that transcended mere words. The child's laughter lingered in his thoughts, a gentle challenge to explore the depths of faith and responsibility intertwined. "Tonight, let us contemplate deeper still," he called out, his voice melding with the whispers of the evening breeze. "For in our quest for faith, we may uncover thoughts long buried. Let us yield ourselves to the stirring of the Spirit." A low murmur arose from the crowd, some nodding in reluctant agreement, others offering furtive glances of skepticism. Yet, the air thrummed with expectancy, as if they too could sense that something monumental lay on the horizon. Amos turned to face a solemn tree that stood defiantly at the edge of the gathering, its gnarled branches reaching towards the heavens, an ancient witness to generations of struggle and strife. "Once, in meditation, I was shown this tree, a symbol of our burden and our hope. It bears the weight of each storm that has passed over us while still reaching towards the light. Why did you not speak of this before?" called out an older man, hardened by a lifetime of doubt. "What wisdom can be found in mere shadows? It is not the shadows alone that reveal wisdom," Amos replied, calming the rising tension in his voice. "Sometimes, the truth emerges only from a cautious tread through the darkness. The river I spoke of will be born of our understanding, and it flows from eyes willing to witness both pain and promise." A silence befell them, a collective breath caught in their throats as they wrestled with what had been said. Amos could see it in their eyes, the flickering of hope battling the familiar mantle of despair. "Moreover," he added, encouraged by the shift in the atmosphere, "we must not merely seek the river for ourselves. What if our belief carries the burden of those who came before us, the generations that tilled this land with faith? Are we prepared to let their sacrifices wash over us, even as we navigate through the currents of our own lives?" He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. In the dimming light, he saw a flicker of comprehension in the child's eyes, the sparkle of understanding illuminating a crucial truth: faith is a legacy shared, not a solitary endeavor. What is this legacy? Another voice piped up, softer yet persistent, a young man stepping forward from the back. "Is it merely our rituals, or is it something grander that we have yet to seize?" The question hung in the air, pregnant with possibility, as if inviting revelation. The night thickened, the stars beginning to peek from behind the clouds, witnesses to the dialogue unfolding beneath them. "Indeed, a grander truth," Amos responded, moved by the sincerity of the inquiry. "It beckons us to imitate the heart of the one who gave all, encouraging us to pour out our love not just to our kin but to the fallen, the broken, and the estranged. To rewrite the narratives of our traditions, and perhaps in that rewriting, we meet our Creator anew." The crowd shifted again, some faces lightening with insight, while others crinkled with confusion. As uncertainty loomed like a tempest on the horizon, the wind returned, rustling the branches and stirring the leaves, a divine communication only the attentive could decipher. "Remember," said Amos, the urgency burning within him demanding to break free, "as we explore this legacy, the question is not simply what we believe, but how our hearts react to this belief. Will we allow the river to flow through us, cleansing not just our souls but the very fabric of our lives and community?" And then, silence fell once more, heavier now, dread mingled with anticipation. In the stillness, a new variation of the child's question echoed in his heart: what would happen if they chose to believe so fervently that their actions could indeed spark a river of righteousness, the kind that not only flowed through them, but also transformed the land they stood upon? Was it possible that their willingness to embrace both light and darkness could weave a tapestry of healing among them? As the darkness settled over the encampment, the flickers of firelight cast dancing shadows that mirrored the turmoil within the hearts of the gathered. Amos felt the weight of their questions pressing upon him, demanding not just answers but an unfolding of deeper mysteries. The solemn tree, a steadfast sentinel through the ages, stood as a witness to the deepening exploration of faith. What lies beyond mere belief? Whispered a voice, almost drowned by the rustle of the leaves. It was the humble voice of Miriam, a woman who had journeyed through loss and despair, yet still sought the flickers of hope in her life. Her brow furrowed, reflecting a struggle that resonated with many in the crowd. Amos turned towards her, the flickering firelight illuminating her features, softened by yearning. To believe is but the first step, he began, his voice steady, yet it is our actions, the fruits of our belief, that give life to that faith. This is not merely an academic question, it is a lived reality that challenges us at every turn. The people shifted, absorbing his words like dry land thirsting for rain. What then does it take, another voice rose from the back, to transform belief into action? How can we bridge this chasm we feel between faith and the world around us? The stars twinkled above, as if the heavens themselves held their breath, waiting for Amos' response. A stirring of the heart, he said, deliberately, guides the hands of those who choose to act. Consider this: each of us bears within us a spark of the divine. It is our responsibility to unleash that spark, not only for ourselves but for all who walk in shadows. A thoughtful murmur rippled through the crowd. But how do we ignite that spark? Can we truly draw from our own brokenness to light the way for others? Miriam pressed on, like the ancient prophets before us. Amos continued, our journey doesn't require perfection. Rather, it calls for authenticity. It is in acknowledging our own fractures and embracing the wounds of our companions that we cultivate empathy and understanding. Remember, we are bound together not merely by beliefs but by our shared humanity. A heavy silence enveloped them, and as they pondered his words, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves of the old tree. Even this steadfast witness to generations seemed to whisper its own stories of resilience and hope. Amos raised his voice above the sound of the evening breeze. In the prophecies of old, the call was clear: let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. But justice requires action, does it not? It beckons us to stand firm in the face of oppression and to lift up the downtrodden. The crowd leaned in closer, an unspoken hunger for understanding binding them together. What, then, can you show us of this prophecy, Amos? Asked a young woman with bright eyes that seemed to reflect the light of the stars. How can we be agents of change in a world so steeped in decay? Ah, therein lies the mystery, he replied, a gentle smile playing on his lips. It is not merely about an outward change, but the transformation of our very souls. When we commit to the river of love that runs through our faith, we become vessels, channeling that love into action. An air of possibility crackled around them, woven with uncertainty and a flicker of hope. Amos, sensing the weight of expectation, posed a reflective question, his tone gently probing: if each of us considered ourselves not just as recipients of grace but as stewards of it, what new paths could we carve into the fabric of our community? And how might that transformation echo through generations yet to come? As they wrestled with the implications of his question, the shadows lengthened, enveloping the space in a contemplative embrace. In the heart of each individual gathered, faint whispers of the unknown began to stir, challenging them to envision a reality where their faith could ignite a river of righteousness, changing everything they believed about themselves and each other. What had yet to be revealed lay just beyond the horizon, inviting them further into the mystery of their faith, awaiting their answer. The night stretched on, and the fire crackled softly, casting warmth against the coolness of the night air. The crowd lingered, captivated not just by Amos' words but by the gravity of their shared journey. As the stars continued to blink above, each one seemed a distant promise of connection and purpose. Miriam, deep in thought, hesitated before speaking again, her voice trembling slightly. Amos, you've sparked a flame of hope within us, but how do we respond when our actions seem so inconsequential in the face of overwhelming injustice? What if, despite our best intentions, we fail to make a difference? The question hung in the air, heavy with doubt. Amos observed Miriam, recognizing the vulnerability of her inquiry. It was a sentiment felt collectively in those gathered, a fear that their efforts might be little more than whispers against a storm. He lowered his voice, infusing it with a gentleness that might cradle their worries. Each act, no matter how small, ripples through the fabric of existence. Do not underestimate the power of one compassionate deed, for like the tiny acorn that falls to the earth, it may hold within it the potential to grow into a mighty oak. Every act of kindness, every moment of standing up for the oppressed, contributes to the tapestry of justice. The women and men around the fire exchanged glances, their expressions a blend of curiosity and uncertainty. A man named Eli, his beard flecked with silver, spoke up, and when the world we seek to change pushes back, how do we find the strength to persevere? Amos nodded, acknowledging the endurance required to navigate the turbulent waves of opposition. Perseverance is born from something deeper than mere determination. It emerges from community. When we hold each other up, when we face the trials together, we discover that our collective strength far exceeds our individual endeavors. He gestured toward the solid tree standing watch over them. Look at that old sentinel. It thrives because its roots are intertwined with others, drawing from a shared source of strength. So too must we intertwine our lives with one another, creating a network of support, a canopy that offers shelter amid the storms. A flicker of understanding lit Miriam's eyes. But what if, after all this, we find ourselves tested beyond our limits? What if the very thing we seek to uphold is shattered before our eyes? Amos breathed deeply, allowing the silence to settle like a blanket over them. The heart of faith lies not in the certainty of outcomes, but in the act of steadfastness itself. The prophets spoke of a day of reckoning, a time when all wrongs would be made right. They did not promise an easy path, only the unfurling of divine love and truth. To hold on to faith amidst despair is perhaps one of the greatest tests of all. With each word, an air of tension seemed to ease, replaced by a growing desire to seek connection amidst uncertainty. The fire danced, sending sparks spiraling upward, and Eli, in a moment of inspiration, prompted, what if our journey of faith is not merely about our destination, but about the very act of walking together toward it? Amos' face illuminated with delight at the insight. Yes. For the journey shapes us, refines us, and reveals the hearts of who we truly are. In our striving, we become the embodiment of hope, lighting the way for others who find themselves lost. In this moment of revelation, a question began to take root within the hearts of those gathered. The realization that their struggle was part of a shared human experience wrapped around them like a comforting cloak. Each person gazed into the flickering depths of the fire, reflecting on their own lives and the collective journey that lay ahead. As the night deepened, a sense of possibility settled over the encampment. Amos probed further with a question that stirred the stillness: how can we, through our love and shared vulnerability, not only nurture hope within ourselves but ignite a flame in those who walk alongside us, transforming our distraught community into one of healing? In this journey of faith, what metamorphosis awaits us, unseen, just beyond the horizon? As dawn began to stretch its golden fingers across the horizon, the glow of the fading fire illuminated the faces of those who had shared the night under the starlit sky. Tired yet invigorated by their conversations, the group felt a renewed sense of purpose weaving through their midst. Miriam, gazing toward the rising sun, whispered to herself, "Perhaps there is more wisdom hidden in our shared vulnerability than I once believed." Amos, sensing the change in atmosphere, gathered the group around one last time before they would disperse to face the day ahead. The air was fresh with the scent of dew, promising a new beginning. He knew they were on the brink of something, though he could not yet see its full manifestation. "Let us turn our hearts towards the words of the prophets," he said softly, allowing his gaze to sweep over the folks around him. One prophet, in particular, called for a genuine return to justice and righteousness: Amos of Tekoa. In his haunting verses, we find a challenge that echoes through the ages. His voice, still resonant today, lies in the very heart of our struggle, intrigued murmurs rose amongst the assembly as they refocused on him. Eli, whose charcoal-like wisdom had deepened through the years, spoke up. "Tell us, what did he say? What may change the course of our actions today?" Amos proclaimed. Said Amos, his voice steady, "Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Imagine our community, a wellspring of hope, where justice is an endless force indeed. This very image should inspire us to act, but how do we make that vision a reality?" asked Miriam, a glimmer of doubt creeping back into her voice. "By seeking the heart of the matter. There is still more in that prophecy to uncover," Amos replied, his eyes shining with fervor. Amos also cautioned against hollow worship, where the outward expressions of faith do not bear the fruits of justice in our lives. It is the questions we dare to ask ourselves that may guide our actions toward that vision. Questions like, am I turning a blind eye to the suffering around me? Or do I truly seek to listen and understand those who cry out for help? A profound silence followed, each person grappling with the weight of these inquiries. The indirect challenge ignited flashes of introspection, scattering seeds of realization among them. Eli, feeling the weight of centuries on his shoulders, pondered aloud, could it be that our struggles are meant to bring us closer together, to help us unveil deeper truths within our own hearts? Yes. Amos exclaimed, the fervor rising in his voice. The pain of injustice, when faced together, offers us the canvas for empathy and understanding. We must also remember, however, that the journey toward justice is fraught. As we traverse the terrain, we may falter and face setbacks, leading us to doubt whether we can truly foster change. Miriam's brow furrowed in thought. What if we find ourselves paralyzed by fear? What if the weight of our circumstances drags us down rather than lifts us? How do we keep the flame of hope alive in such darkness? Amos considered her words carefully, recognizing the depth of her concern. In moments when despair begins to encroach, we must remind ourselves of the fellowship we have forged here. It is our duty to encourage one another, to bear each other's burdens, as our collective strength can ignite renewal where the individual can falter. As we seek to uplift the voices of our neighbors, we ourselves will find the resilience needed to continue this fight together. With each word, the sun ascended higher, casting rays that illuminated the path ahead. The group felt the undercurrents of hope pulsing within them, yet, with dawn's arrival came the reality that their work was just beginning. As the group began to part ways, eyes lingering on Amos, a new question rooted itself in their minds, echoing among their hearts. What if, amid the uncertainty and struggle, there lay a profound purpose to uncovering the truth about who they were meant to be both individually and as a community? Would they have the courage to pursue it, and in doing so, perhaps become the very justice Amos envisioned? As the warmth of the sun bathed the landscape in gold, the group began to spread out in different directions, their hearts still tethered by the threads of deep conversation and contemplation. Miriam lingered for a moment longer, watching as each soul moved on to their respective path, searching for clarity in the myriad of uncertainties that lay ahead. She felt a gentle tug at her spirit, as though something unseen was beckoning her to explore the deeper truths within the words of Amos. Driven by curiosity, Miriam found her feet moving in the direction of a quiet grove just beyond the village, a place where the birds sang sweet melodies and the mighty trees whispered ancient secrets. Perhaps, she thought, solitude would provide the clarity she sought. Upon reaching the grove, she settled herself beneath a large olive tree, its gnarled branches laden with small fruits of promise. She closed her eyes and allowed the gentle breeze to wash over her, encouraging her mind to wander freely through the shadows of Amos' words. The idea of justice rolling like waters danced in her thoughts, but so too did unease when she considered the path of righteousness. After a few moments of silence, she took a deep breath, letting the peace of the grove seep into her. That's when a flutter among the leaves caught her attention. It was a small piece of parchment, seemingly lost among the roots of the olive tree. Intrigued, she gently picked it up and read the words scrawled upon it, "Woe to you who desire the day of the Lord." Why would you have the day of the Lord? It is darkness, and not light. Amos 5 verse 18. Miriam's heart raced as she reread the lines. Those words carried a rawness that stirred something deep within her. She had oft heard tales of the day of the Lord, a day of judgment, of hope for the faithful. But were the prophets implying something more complex about that day? The notion of darkness residing alongside light felt unsettling, as if the truth of the day of the Lord had been kept hidden beneath a veil. As she sat there, wrestling with the revelation, she contemplated the community's anticipation of change, their hopes entwined with those ancient prophecies. But what if they had failed to understand the full essence of that day? What if justice demanded more than mere obedience, but a profound reckoning with the shadows of their lives and their community? Miriam's thoughts drifted back to Amos' earlier words, resonating like echoes in her mind. Hollow worship, he had warned, is a veil that obscures the call to true righteousness. Her heart sank as she could recall instances when she herself had missed the mark, having hidden behind rituals without grasping their essence. What if, in seeking the day of the Lord, they were neglecting the depths of their own shortcomings? Were they prepared to confront the darkness within, to reconcile the light of their faith with the reality of their actions? As the wind rustled through the olive leaves, Miriam felt a duality emerging, a bittersweet understanding that to pursue justice and righteousness, they must also navigate the labyrinth of their own shadows. Returning to the village, she knew she would share her thoughts with the others. Yet, still enveloped in questioning, she pondered the ramifications of this newly uncovered perspective. What if their pursuit of righteousness began with a deeper introspection of their own hearts? And could they lead each other toward the light by first confronting the dark corners of their souls? A task daunting yet vital. With this in mind, she began to grasp the additional complexity of their struggles. Perhaps in truth, their path forward would not only be about the justice they sought in the world around them, but also the courage to embrace their own failings as individuals and as a community. Would they find the strength to walk that narrow path, where the shadows offered lessons as profound as the light? With her heart pensive and questions swirling in her mind, she stepped forward, resolved to ensure that no one shied away from asking the difficult questions that might shift the very foundation of their pursuit for justice. What did these truths reveal about their destiny? And would they be willing to face the unknown risk of transformation together? Miriam reached the heart of the village, the familiar sights and sounds wrapping around her like a comforting cloak. Yet, she felt the weight of her revelations tugging at her conscience. Her fellow villagers were busy, their laughter ringing with an urgency that belied the serious undertones of their shared faith. It was then that she spotted Eli, a respected elder whose wisdom was often sought in matters both spiritual and practical. He was tending to the communal fire, the flames flickering with life as the evening approached. As she approached him, a decision formed in her thoughts. She would confide in Eli, seeking his perspective on the darkening complexities of their understanding of justice and righteousness. Perhaps he had pondered similar questions throughout his years, weaving through the intricacies of faith that so often seemed straightforward on the surface. Eli, she began, her voice softer than she intended, "May I have a moment of your time?" He looked up, his eyes softening with warmth mixed with curiosity. "Of course, Miriam. What weighs on your heart today?" She took a deep breath, the previous thoughts swirling back to her consciousness. "I encountered a passage from Amos, speaking of the day of the Lord as a time of darkness rather than light. It made me reflect on our anticipation for that day. Are we truly prepared for the reckoning it suggests? Have we accounted for the shadows among us?" Eli leaned back against the support of an oak, his expression contemplative. "Ah, the wisdom of the prophets," he mused. "It often reveals layers that we tend to overlook. You ask an important question. The day of the Lord is indeed a day of arrival, but it also demands readiness from our hearts. It is an invitation to accountability, not merely a promise of vindication." There was an earnestness in his gaze that urged her to continue. "What if, in our longing for justice, we are neglecting our personal shadows? I think about the hollow worship Amos spoke of and how easy it can be to perform rituals without understanding their true weight. I fear we may be trying to seek light without confronting the darkness lurking within." Eli nodded, clearly resonating with her words. "You touch upon a profound truth, Miriam. It is easy to expect the Lord to right every wrong while failing to examine our own hearts. It is a delicate paradox, one that calls us to embrace both our faith and our failings. The journey towards righteousness requires humility, an acknowledgement of our flawed nature. As they spoke, a flicker of understanding ignited in Miriam. So, could it be that the awakening we seek in our community begins with our own revelations? That embracing our shadows could lead us closer to the light we hope for? Precisely, Eli replied, his expression shifting to one of deep thoughtfulness. It is not enough to desire justice, one must also wrestle with grace. Remember, even light casts a shadow. To illuminate the world, we must first shine a light on our own hearts. This introspection is painful yet vital, forging the path towards true unity. Her heart swelled with both fear and anticipation as she processed his words. Would the community welcome such an honest exploration of their souls? Would they have the courage to engage with their darker selves, revealing wounds that had remained hidden? As the shadows of the trees deepened with the fading sun, an unshakable thought crossed her mind. Could it be possible that unearthing the collective darkness would ultimately bring them closer together, perhaps leading to a community more authentically rooted in love and justice? Miriam felt emboldened by the conversation. She imagined gathering the villagers, sharing the nuances of Amos' prophecy and the truths that had been unearthed. But would they embrace this journey? Would they desire to confront their shadows, or would the fear of exposure keep them mired in complacency? With a newfound resolve, she met Ella's gaze. We must talk to them, Eli. We owe it to ourselves and to our community to explore these truths together. Eli smiled. Knowingly, it begins with one heart at a time. The question now is, are you ready to guide them into the challenge of change? Does the light of your understanding outweigh the fear of what lies beneath? Miriam gazed into the swirling flames of the fire, pondering the road ahead. The questions lingered in her mind, echoing with urgency. How would they bridge the divide between the light they sought and the shadows they felt? Would they have the courage to face the darkness together and emerge transformed? In the heart of Bethel, as dawn graced the sleeping town with its golden light, a gathering began to form around the ancient olive tree where Miriam had shared her newfound revelations with Eli. The air was thick with anticipation as the townsfolk, drawn by the rumors of an awakening sparked by the mysterious prophecy of Amos, began to converge upon the square. Children ran with joy, unaware of the gravity unfolding in the hearts of the adults. Amos stood at the forefront, feeling the palpable tension in the air. His heart was an open flame, urging courage in the midst of uncertainty. People of Bethel, today we gather not just to talk about faith, but to live it, he called out, his voice steady and clear, echoing against the cobblestones. Today, we choose to venture into the shadows, not with fear, but with the light of our truths. As murmurs spread among the crowd, Miriam stepped forward, emboldened by the connections she had forged in her conversations with Eli and the unwavering voice of the child who had once sparked a flame within her. Fellow villagers, she began, summoning the courage she had unearthed in her solitude, we are called to confront the complexities of our faith, not just the light we yearn for, but also the darkness we must face within ourselves. A ripple of unease passed through the assembly, but behind the trepidation, there flickered a yearning and insatiable hunger for truth. Eli joined her side, grounding her in shared wisdom. The prophet spoke of a day of reckoning, he added, a day that isn't just meant to be feared but to spur us into action. It's a transformative journey. To fulfill Amos' prophecy, we must cleanse our hearts and honor the many shades within us. What began as hesitant whispers grew into an uproar of truth and doubt as members of the community wrestled with their feelings of shame and hope. A voice from the back called out, but how can we face our darkness without falling into despair? What if the weight of it crushes us? Amos raised his hands to quiet the crowd, his eyes twinkling with reassurance. It won't crush us if we stand together. Shadows grow heavier in isolation, but when we share our burdens, we become lighter. A young woman with tear-stained cheeks stepped forth, her voice breaking through the chorus of doubt. I lost my way, my compassion dulled beneath my own desires. Can we really embrace the shadows of our hearts, or will they consume us? The heart's shadows do not define us, Miriam replied, immediate empathy sparking within her. They reflect our humanity. To face them is to step into a deeper understanding not just of ourselves but of each other. It is in vulnerability that we find strength. As the sun continued to rise, casting a warm embrace on the gathering, a sense of unity began to form, a collective agreement that perhaps the path to righteousness flowed through their willingness to unveil the truth of who they were. A man with calloused hands, weathered by years of toil, stepped forward. I have stood idly by, turning my heart from those in need, blind to their cries. How do I atone for this? How can I change? With an encouraging nod from Amos, Miriam spoke earnestly. Change begins within. Let us make a pact to shoulder each other's burdens, to listen and reflect, to challenge one another with grace. Acknowledge your shadows, not as your masters but as teachers guiding you toward love. At that moment, the crowd felt a shift. Conversation sparked as some began to share their own struggle, stories of hidden shame, lost hope, and doubts clung to like burdensome weights. Each confession was met with understanding and compassion, forming a burgeoning web of connection woven through shared humanity. Amos beamed as he witnessed the transformation unfolding, a glow of conviction spreading through the crowd. And let us remember, beloved friends, this is not a journey we undertake alone. The Lord is with us as we travail through the shadows, illuminating our way with love. In the midst of it all, the once quiet child stood, her small frame alight with innocence, and exclaimed, "Can we be like the river Amos spoke of? Can we be the waters of justice and kindness flowing into the lives of others?" The crowd erupted in a chorus of affirmations, "Yes. Yes." Spurred on by the child's unwavering spirit, they felt a shared purpose awaken within them, a fiery resolve to become vessels of change. Amos, voice filled with fervor, declared, "Let today mark a new beginning. Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. We no longer wait for a day of reckoning. We create it, as we unveil our shadows, heal our hearts, and bring forth the divine love we so deeply seek." With renewed conviction, the townsfolk turned to one another, their hearts beating in a synchronized rhythm of hope. Fixated on each other's eyes, they formed a circle around the ancient olive tree, a symbol of life and renewal, and clasped hands. In that sacred space, the weight of their secrets melded into a burdensome yet beautiful tapestry, where hope flourished alongside struggle. As they stood connected, their voices raised in unison, chanting a pledge of change and love, the shadows began to dissipate. A breeze breached the air around them, as if the heavens themselves embraced their resolve. And in that moment, time seemed to unfurl, reminding them of the divine purpose they had always shared for one another, a purpose rooted not in perfection, but in authentic love for both light and dark. In the echoes of their chant, a profound understanding took shape. Revelation reverberated through the very fabric of their gathering. In learning to embrace their darkness, they had begun to illuminate their path toward justice. The river of love flowed forth, rushing forth as they began to transform not only their own hearts but the community, setting forth ripples that extended beyond Bethel, destined to reach far and wide. The day of the Lord had come, not as a tense reckoning but as a profound awakening, a powerful reminder that to walk in faith is to dance with the shadows, to embrace the journey of healing together. And so, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting warmth upon the people of Bethel, they emerged. Renewed hearts entwined in shared purpose, stepping forth united in hope, forever changed by the simple yet extraordinary truth, in the embrace of light and darkness, they would find wholeness.